Now, I know this looks like an Xbox One controller, but it's actually a Switch controller, and not a bad one at that. You know, it's been a little while since the last time that we've done a Nintendo Switch accessories list, and in that time, a lot more cool ones have come out, more than just the controller. We've got a lot more to talk about. For instance, these awesome cases designed specifically for your Nintendo Switch Lite that matches your favorite color. In the past, when I've talked about grips for the regular Switch, the two that I've really liked are the Satisfy and the Skull & Co. Now, when it comes to the Switch Lite, Satisfy got their grip out really quickly, which I've talked about before, which is really nice. But just recently, Skull & Co. started releasing their option as well, which is a really good alternative. Now, to be clear, the Satisfy is still a good option. I think it's a really nice one-size-fits-all approach. The thing that's really nice about Skull & Co., though, is that there are multiple grip types, so if you don't like the one-size-fits-all approach, there's a couple different ones you can choose from that are really easy to swap in and out. And I think the biggest thing, honestly, is that especially for the Switch Lite, they really nailed down the concept of the aesthetic. The regular Skull & Co. for the normal size Switch was a black case design, which worked fine because most regular Switches are just, well, black. There's a few special editions that look nicer, but that would be hidden if you used their case. And they had different grip colors that would match your favorite pair of Joy-Cons. Well, for the Switch Lite, they've taken a really cool approach where the main body is a clear case, so it showcases whichever color Switch Lite you have, which I think is a really important aspect. One of the best things about the Switch Lite is it's just a better looking system. But on top of that, you can also get matching grips that will go along with your favorite color, whether it's the turquoise design, the yellow, the gray, or as you can see here, even the Pokemon Special Edition, they've got grips that match the front-facing buttons, which is a really cool choice. Now, as I mentioned, there are a couple different grip choices you can use. The one that I have on it right now is the standard kind of medium size, and this ends up working out really well for me. There is another one that is a larger shape, so if you have bigger hands and the Switch is just really uncomfortable for you normally, that's gonna be a good choice. And in addition to those, something that I don't remember seeing on the regular size one, it's possible that maybe I just lost them, oops. But with this Switch Lite bundle, there is a third choice, which is a very small, very light bump that adds to the back. I think it's mainly best for either if kids are using the grip or if you just have particularly small hands. It doesn't really add a proper full grip design, but it does keep the overall body nice and low profile. Topping that all off, something that's really handy about this too is that because the grips obviously make your Switch Lite a little larger, there is also a case you can get alongside it that will fit not only the Switch inside of its case with the grips, but also gives a little storage space to put additional grips if you ever do like switching out depending on the game you're playing. While we're on the subject of cases, something else that came out recently is the Nintendo Switch Lite flip cover. Now, this was actually kind of first advertised and shown off when the Switch Lite was announced, and a lot of people were really curious about it, and then we didn't actually get a release for it until really just a couple weeks ago. Normally, when you're talking about cases for the Switch, it's something that's maybe a little larger than this. It's something where, you know, oh, you can put your Switch in here, you can put games, cables, Joy-Cons, maybe even a full-size controller. This is obviously not one of those kinds of cases. This is a much more low-profile design that just covers the Switch Lite itself, and is more focused on being a simple protective cover. Now, the upside to this is that it keeps the overall portability of the Switch Lite itself. You're not gonna be carrying anything else with this, but if you just like having a nice small system that you can shove in a bag, this is gonna make sure you can still do that. And it's actually, surprisingly, a really hard, nice case. It's pretty simple too. Your Switch Lite just kind of clips into the main body of it, and then there's a small magnetic strip inside of the case that makes sure that it clasps nice and tight. One question that I had from a couple people when I first showed it off was like, oh, could you use this as like a portable stand for the Switch Lite? Which honestly wasn't a thought that really occurred to me at first. It's something you could do with this where, you know, it's like, hey, like set it up like this. It doesn't work out very well. The hinge right here is very soft. It is clearly not designed for that purpose. If you spent a lot of time, you certainly could kind of rig this into being a desktop setup, but it's not really worth the effort. There are a lot of other better designed accessories out there for that specific purpose. Now, one thing I gotta talk about with this real quick is that it is a little pricey. As I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of cases out there on the market that offer a lot of additional storage options and handy things. You can get those for 15, 20, at most usually 25 or 30 bucks. This hardshell case is $40. Part of that is that this is a first-party Nintendo product. This has not been licensed out to anyone. This isn't Hori, this isn't PDP. This is flat out Nintendo made this. And it is a really nice case, I gotta say. It's just, you're definitely paying more than a lot of the competition out there. I think if you're into having a super portable version of the Switch Lite where you're not carrying games, you're not carrying anything else, you just want a nice way to protect it on the go, this is an excellent option, as long as you're willing to spend the money. If you want a more budget option though, there are a lot of great alternatives out there, including even the Skull & Co case that we just talked about. This next product is probably the oldest one on this list. It actually came out around the same time as the Switch Lite, and we just kind of missed out on it. I've talked about some similar ones before, but I've had a few people ask me what I think of this, and that is the Hori double USB stand for the Switch. Now, this technically is designed for any Switch that's out there, but it's definitely been marketed a little bit more towards the Switch Lite, primarily because, well, the Switch Lite doesn't have a dock. Obviously, you don't need one for connecting to a TV, but some people really like having a charge stand or a way of just, placing the system down somewhere. And this serves that purpose and a couple others. First off, obviously you can use this as a desktop setup if you ever want to play with the Switch Lite in a tabletop mode. Maybe you want to really use a Pro Controller for a certain game. It just acts as a nice little stand because, again, the Switch Lite doesn't have a kickstand or any kind of support for that normally. It also includes a power in, which can support just using the regular Nintendo Switch AC adapter. Again, if you want to use it as a charge stand, that's an option. I think one of the most intriguing uses of this, though, is an on-the-go multiplayer setup for the Switch Lite or even just a regular Switch. See, when you're using this on the go, not only does it act as a way to prop up the Switch or charge it, but it also gives you access to these two USB-A ports, which is the main connection that a lot of wired Switch controllers use. So if you have a kind of budget on-the-go setup where you want to use wired Switch controllers to do a local multiplayer game in tabletop, whether that's some Smash or Mario Kart, whatever, this is going to be the way to let you do that setup on the go, which is really handy. One of the slightly more special use cases of it, and I would apply this a little more to the regular full-size Switch. On the Switch Lite, it would be maybe just a little too chaotic, is that 2 USB ports is enough to hook up a GameCube controller adapter. So if you really want to do some Smash Brothers on the go for a full 4-player setup, or even just 2 players with the GameCube controllers, this is something that will allow you to do that. All in all, this is a pretty straightforward, simple accessory. It does all the things that it advertises. I think it's a good pickup for, again, if you like that idea of having an on-the-go multiplayer setup. It also works really well, though, if you just want a place to set down and charge a Switch Lite. Like that. Hey, so remember this controller from the start of the video? So this is the GuliKit Kingkong controller, which is a very special name. Now, I can't take full credit for discovering this controller. I actually saw this featured a couple weeks ago on Wolfden's channel, and I really wanted to try it out for myself. This is very clearly an Xbox One controller. I mean, it's not an actual Xbox One controller, but it is using the same base mold design. The grip, the shaping, the button placement, the triggers, all of this is clearly inspired by the Xbox One controller. And in fact, I didn't go for it, but you can spend 10 bucks more to get a bundle with a case that looks very suspiciously like the Xbox One Elite controller case. Now, while this does look like an Xbox One controller and has the benefits of the grip style of one, the actual buttons and sticks obviously aren't up to the same quality. It just feels like a cheaper controller, which is, I think, a trade-off a lot of people are used to when you're buying random third-party, cheaper wireless controllers. That being said, they're fine. They get the job done, triggers are okay, front-facing buttons are fine. The sticks, one thing I will point out is that in Wolfden's video, he had a weird problem where it would heavily favor the sideways input, so like if you're doing a full diagonal, it would read it more like here than here. That is not a problem I've had, so it's possible that he just got a bad unit, which does say something about the general quality assurance, but it's not necessarily a widespread issue. The one aspect of this controller that I will say I do not care for at all is the D-pad. This is not a great D-pad. There are a lot of better controllers out there with better D-pad options, so if you really care about retro games or any games where the D-pad is very important, this is not a great choice. But if you want something that looks and feels like an Xbox controller for the Switch, it's a pretty cool pickup. It's worth pointing out that the actual main kind of selling point of this controller is its macro setup, where you have a way of recording up to 10 minutes long of inputs and then hit the button again in order to actually replay them. I'm not gonna go as full in depth on this as Wolfden did. I highly recommend checking out his video. The main takeaway is it doesn't quite work exactly as well as you would hope. There are some specific use cases where it still can be a good choice. If you're interested in that macro recording, I recommend checking out his video. If instead you just want an Xbox One style controller for your Switch, this works. Now this next product is so new that it's actually not technically out yet. It's releasing a couple days after this video, but HyperX sent me this charge case for the regular full-size Switch to check out. And normally I'm a little wary of any kind of charger solution on the Switch just because of the history of third-party docks, but honestly, I've never had a huge issue with anything that's just straight power. There's been a couple charge banks and stuff that I've tried out before, and it's never given me an issue. It's normally when it's something that's trying to charge and push a video signal at the same time. It isn't an official Nintendo Switch dock that weird, bad things happen. But I've been trying this out, and I really like it, actually. One of the main selling points of this, honestly, is the modularity of the design. So as you can see right now, I have the full Switch just set up in this, and it is a very beefy grip. You don't have to have these side ones on. You can actually take this off if you want. It just pulls out really easy like that. I find that leaving them on is actually a little better though because of the weight distribution. It feels a little weird having the full battery bank pulling on it right now. So adding these is really nice for that. But while you're in this setup, it's acting as a battery bank for the Switch, so it's gonna charge it up while you're playing on the go. But the really cool thing is that you can also take this apart and deconstruct it into a tabletop setup as well. So as you saw, I could take these grips off, which I'll do again right now. And you can actually just set it up so that when you're on the go, you can set this up as a stand, and you can either continue to use your Joy-Cons individually like this, or these two parts right here can recombine and turn into a grip that you can slot your Joy-Cons into, which is really handy. I will say this isn't exactly my favorite Joy-Con grip that I've ever used. There are other options out there that are a little more comfortable, but considering that it's just kind of one more extra little feature on top of the main focus of this product, which is being a portable battery bank, it's pretty awesome. And really, for someone like me where the Switch is honestly a dedicated handheld the way I use it, getting extra battery life on the go is absolutely a must, because there's nothing worse than being out, playing a lot, especially with certain games that drain the battery even faster. Thank you, Fire Emblem. You just don't want to be in that situation where you're having a ton of fun and then it dies off. So stuff like this is awesome to grab. Last words. Stevie, what are we doing at the end of this video? Man, I'm like double checking now whenever I think of like saying something offhandedly, because there's a much greater risk of John using it somehow. I'm like, what joke could I make right now? No, don't make that joke, because I don't know if I want John to put that one in the video.